Could the markets be gearing up for a push to the upside? Well, there are some indicators of exactly this, and we'll take a closer look at them. Today is Wednesday, and Paul from DEVVE is joining us for some in-depth price analysis. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. If you, like me, came into crypto because you realize that there is massive potential here for incredible gains over a longer period, 4 to 8 year period, and you're looking for discussions on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, kind of like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, you're in exactly the right place and with the right family, the Rainmaker family. Now, the reason I created this channel is because I was once new to crypto myself. And back then, I was looking for a crypto channel or a group that understood crypto as an investment, that researched things like this, cycles, that researched projects on a deeper level, looking at the fundamentals of them, so that I could make better decisions on which projects I believed in for the long term. Well, I didn't really find that, so we created it. And I say we because it's not just me anymore. It's a family of Rainmakers, and you'll see them here in the chat. You will find some in our free Telegram group. There is a link to that below. You will definitely find them in our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. The private Discord is where the best discussion and best info is. There are other benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many, many different markets, and none of this to be taken as financial advice. If you haven't already, make it rain on that like button and strap in for this show and help me welcome Paul from DEVVE. Paul, thanks so much for joining us. Uh-oh, we lost your audio. Oh, it's on mute.
That was, I was on mute this time. Yeah, we had a little offline reset of the computers. I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on today with technology. It's the end of August. Maybe everything's just in holiday mode or coming to the end of holiday mode, and my computer and me, I suppose, included, leaving my mic on mute. So yeah, lots to talk about, lots to look at. I think the market is fairly quiet in terms of what we're seeing in volumes, and the market's been blown around by very small volumes, but we should be looking at some very interesting setups as we enter September and as volumes start to increase. And as we look at the charts, there's still some great things to come ahead, I believe. And yeah, looking forward to getting into it.
Awesome. We are live. Shout out to Randy Chavez joining us. What's up, brother? Kevin Hawthorne says, good morning from Lakeland, Florida. Chris Ashbay joining us. Johnny says, my patience is running out, guys. Give me some good news. Uh-oh. That is definitely a warning sign. And what usually happens is our patience is about to run out, and then the market purposely pushes you past that point and gets you to capitulate. So part of what you're building to become like a savage crypto investor is not unlimited patience, but really, really extensive patience. Because it does seem like, when, say, a bunch of kids like beat you up on the playground, push you to the ground, they're kicking you, and they kick you till like 10 minutes after you can't even take it anymore. And that's sometimes what the market does to us. So one of the tricks I found is to really try to extend that patience level, because it will kick you 10 minutes past what you feel like you can take. All right. Bill Gardner says, let's go. I mean, there is good signs that things are turning around. The projects you're in may or may not be ready to pump yet, which further dwindles your patience when it feels like everything else is taking off but what you're in. And then it gets you usually to sell what you're in for cheap to roll into whatever is pumping that just went higher. And that doesn't usually work out very well. Chris asks a good question. Morning, Paul. Are you just as excited about the market today as last week?
Yeah. I mean, it's I look at the market from a long-term perspective, and week to week, it would take a lot to change my view. And remember, we're still in the August markets, and your patience will be tested. And that's what the market does. The market doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care what I think. The market will just do what it wants to do. If you're running out of patience, that's your problem. Sorry, but it is. It's not, the market's not there to satisfy you. It's going to do what it wants. And, you know, you've got to do what you feel is right. Now, it all depends on your time frame. And if you've got a short-term time frame, then trading week to week, yeah, maybe 1 week is more bullish than another. Maybe, you know, it looks like things could come back a little bit. We've had a lot of negative news over the weekend in the Middle East. There's been some little bit of buying of dollars on that, and in a thin market. Actually, the dollar hasn't really gone up much considering how bad the news has been. But you know, there, I keep saying we're in these August markets, thin volumes. It's like it's holiday time, so there's not, we're not really expecting much to happen now. It's more what's going to happen later on, September, October, November, election time in the US, and there's a lot of data releases to come in between there. But when we look at the markets, you know, especially the equities, which leads everything, they're still going higher, about to break higher. So if we have a look at the Dow Jones, which is the first chart, you'll see that, you know, what's happening here. We're nearly at a new all-time high. And I thought the carry trade was going to send everything into recession, and everyone's saying that this is over for the bull market. Well, no, the market had a big move down and it recovered it very, very quickly. What is that telling you? That's telling you that risk on is still there. We've got the same. The Nasdaq obviously was a bit of a more bullish trade prior to that, and so it has corrected, but it's rebounded again very quickly. May consolidate here, but the trend is still up. There's not a change in trend there. S&P, the same. It's nearly at an all-time high, and apparently recession's here and everything's bad. So, you know, I get that there's the August markets, and I get that people are losing patience with crypto, but everything has to go through its own cycle, and the equity markets do it. Sometimes they're boring for ages, and then they suddenly become really interesting. Crypto 18 months ago was apparently dead. We've seen some brilliant trends. Now they're correcting, and we've got this pause. Most people think it's the end, but it doesn't look like it. It just looks like we're in this, as I said last week in Bitcoin, we're in this neutral zone. Things are getting ready for the next breakup, and I'm not just buying into this story that everything is negative and the party's over. So I think for people who are willing to stay the longer course, there will potentially be greater rewards, because this the carry trade in the Japanese yen against, you know, mainly the US dollar, the Aussie, and other high yielding currencies, this really did cause a big shakeup. You know, at the beginning of August, that's made people even more bearish, and that's reverberated a little bit, I think, into crypto, just kept it in a holding pattern. But more of what I look at in terms of the US dollar and the direction of travel for the US dollar is just confirming that things look even more like they're about to break lower. You know, we were looking for a move towards 100, nearly got that in the dollar index. So this is like a dollar share price, if you want to think of it like that. We've been in this range for a long time, and we're touching nearly 100, massive psychological level. Below that, we've got 96.69, which was the absolute low from this period. And markets have a tendency to look very symmetrical. So the amount of time from here, let's have a look at it. What is it? From here to here, we've got a period of 318 bars, 455 days. So let's take the period now from here to here. Well, it's 405 days. So we're getting close to the same amount of time. And this top is created and this top. And so if there was to be a breakout or breakdown here, that would be extremely bullish. Maybe we need to see some bad data in the US. By bad data, I mean weaker unemployment or inflation showing that it's going even lower. And that would encourage greater rate cuts that the market is already looking for. So if we go back to the short-term interest rate markets, this is the 6-month market, which is turning over. It's turning down. interest rates look like they're pressuring lower. That's in the 6-month and in the 2-year, which is now below 4%. So 2-year money, if you put your money into US treasuries, the safest bonds in the world, for 2 years, you're going to get less than 4%, and that's falling. So the market is expecting lower interest rates. The further you go out the curve, the lower the interest rate seems to be. Now, what that suggests is that short-term interest rates need to fall really far and really fast in order to make the yield curve turn back up. I mean, there are many ways of looking at this. Some people look at this and say that there's recession coming because lower long-term interest rates means that the economy is doing badly, and that will mean that interest rates will be lower in the longer end, and there's weakness in borrowing and all that sort of stuff. But that's not what we're seeing. See, we're seeing the interest rate cyclicals, which are the property stocks and the banks, they're doing very well and they're pushing higher. So that picture doesn't work. And the equity markets are pushing into new highs. If they were topping out and moving lower, I'd say, yeah, there's an argument there. Now, I might be wrong. I don't assume that everything I say is correct. I can get things wrong. And like anyone, I need to leave that possibility open. But that's once I've been proven wrong by the market telling me that the risk on is over. And the signs that we look for that are the most sensitive markets, being the equity markets. When they start to turn down, that tells us that things are changing. Now, Bitcoin being in a range, and ETH actually being quite a bit weaker is a little bit of a, well, Bitcoin is just in a range. There's nothing really more to say about it. It's in this neutral zone. It's been trading around this range for a long time, wearing out people's patience as it does. And it just needs to break out in either direction. That's how to go on the downside. That's been rejected. I think that's the most important thing we can say about Bitcoin, because that's been rejected and rejected so hard by every single major asset, i.e. the stock market, the currency markets, and Bitcoin. That implies to me that the next move will be a breakout to the upside, but we do need to see resistance taken out and a squeeze, and maybe the market's not quite ready for that. So we could be here, for a few more weeks yet before that happens. I can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but that just looks like the greater probability of the two. Now, ETH, if we look at the breakdown point, which is at 2,818, it's come back and retested that almost to the penny, and then it's come off again. So this is a bit of a problem for ETH more than anything else, but it still had that spike low that's not been retested. So I think the bulls have gone short here, and they've got a bit more control here than they have on Bitcoin. But if as soon as we get over this 2818 to 20 level, that will be the end of that move. I think that'll start to move up, and it's still in a longer term upward trend. Admittedly, the trend rate is not as good as Bitcoin. It's a stronger, more aggressive rate of trend, but it's still an uptrend. It's not a downtrend yet. So whilst that's in place, I'm going to remain bullish. Now, except that within that, this consolidation has been going on for a long time. But this is what markets do. It's just all part and parcel of the game of trading, unfortunately. But I've seen the more people throw in the towel, the more people get, sort of capitulate on the price action and say it's over, and the more bearish sort of crash sort of headlines that come out, the more confident I feel that the market will go higher, because I'm a contrarian at heart, and that's how I view the market. So as long as the sentiment story is a mismatch of what's going on in the price, then I feel quite not 100% confident, but I feel more confident that it's the most likely direction of travel for the market.
Yeah, that Bitcoin chart, it got rejected so strongly to the downside. I do believe that chances are really strong when it breaks out of that, and it probably will in the coming couple months, that it's going to make a run to the upside. All right. So any other markets like heavy metals or anything showing us? It's interesting to see the US dollar falling and rates coming down. We've been waiting for that for a long time, because that's part of what then fuels the risk on assets like crypto.
Well, look at this chart of gold.
Yeah.
Gold, look at it breaking higher, you know, and how long did it take before that happened? I mean, this was a trade that I thought would happen for a very long time, and it just took ages before it then went. And then
That's
when
a
it went,
solid breakup.
and then when it goes, it just goes, you know, and it's still going. And this is still a buy. I mean, this could easily, you know, where's it going to go? Who knows? It could go to 4,000, which is an implication that the dollar is going to weaken further. And silver, as we've talked about, that looks like it's going higher. Base metals, we've got copper. That's that hit a massive level at 5, and it's come back down quite aggressively, to be fair, but it's come back to its main upward trend. That trend, if you take a step back, is still upwards. So, you know, the global economy is doing okay. Now, arguably, one of the pieces of the puzzle I've said before is the Chinese stock market, and that based out in January, February of this year. It had its first leg up, it's corrected down, notably on this recent panic. It's not made a new low, it's just corrected, and it barely registered that there was a move lower in the Hong Kong and the you know, Chinese stock markets. There wasn't a spike lower, and it's then moving higher from, you know, the beginning of August. So that was seen as a buying opportunity on that news. Now it hasn't moved that much from here, but it's still moving higher. And this is a market that everybody hates. This is a market that everyone's convinced is in deflation and should be sold and will be much lower. I think it's showing some bullish signs, and this, if this moves up more aggressively, I think it could catch a few people out. So I think this is an interesting one to keep on the back burner. But the most important economy in the world is the US economy. And the US economy seems to be, according to the stock market, doing very well. And we are mixing in with that, going to get interest rate cuts of at least 25 basis points, possibly even 50 basis points, maybe even more, but at least 50 basis points. And that, as I've said before, is whilst the market is going higher. So that should be very bullish. So, you know, we've still got the elections to come. I don't think from a long-term perspective, I think I mentioned this last week. I don't know if I've said this before, but sometimes the market the market tends to do whatever it wants to do and treats news however it wants to treat it. And what I mean by that is, you may say, will Trump get in or will Harris get in? And you could have whatever views on either of those two people. But if Trump gets in, the dollar might go down because he's more of a capitalist and will insist on, you know, the economy doing extremely well, because he's a businessman and he knows lower interest rates is what people want. And that's what he would, you know, use his influence to create. So the dollar could fall aggressively if that happens. If Kamala Harris comes in, then the market may do exactly the same. But the reason for it, or the excuse, could be that maybe she's not as experienced, and maybe as a Democrat, she's going to overspend, and that would be bad for the economy and all those sorts of things. So the market does this post hoc rationalization of what happens in the market, i.e., waits for the move and then describes it afterwards. Whereas what we're trying to do is predict the future, which is a lot harder, of course. It's much harder to do that. It's much easier to be an analyst who's just got to tell you what happened yesterday. You know, it'd be great if it'd be very easy to do that. And that's most of what you're getting in the newspapers. You know, you're getting what's happened yesterday rationalized and explained as though they knew it was going to happen in the first place. But that's why I use charts. I mean, it's fine to have fundamental views as well. And I'm not saying anyone should do anything that, you know, differently, but I find that the charts tend to lead what the market is doing anyway, like the interest rate cuts and things like that. So I'm still, to answer the questions, you know, as bullish as I was last week. Nothing's really changed other than we've just spent another week in August, and there's been a bit of bearish sort of political news for the market to absorb, that the headlines with what's going on in Russia and what's going on in the Middle East didn't look, you know, particularly good, and a little bit of a worrying thing to be absorbing in a quite a thin market. But given the gravity of what's happening, I don't think things have moved that much at all. They really haven't. In fact, if you're going to be buying gold on fear, for example, since Monday, it's actually come lower. But the dollar would be the currency to buy if you were scared, and that's not really gone up. And in fact, it's still going down. It still looks like it's readying for a big break lower.
I'm Groot says, feels like crypto is manipulated more now. Lots of bull and bear traps compared to the past. I don't know that it feels like more or less. I've seen them every step along the way. I got hit by them a lot worse in my earlier days as I was trying to actively trade more. And
Yeah.
I was trying to remove emotion from my framework.
Yeah, I mean that's a statement rather than a question. I suppose anybody's gonna feel it differently depending on how or what their experience is of the market and how they've traded it and at what point. So that may, the word manipulated is a tricky one to digest, really, because I don't know if it's manipulated or not. If you told me it was, I'd say okay. And if you told me it wasn't, I'd say okay. I don't know how I'd prove whether it is or not. A lot of people tell me that the gold market is definitely manipulated and it should have been much higher. So it was said many times to me before, and it is now much higher. So my question is it still being manipulated higher? Should it be even higher? It seems to be acting as a normal trend would act. So I don't know how I can prove whether something is or isn't manipulated, but sometimes when the market catches people out on the bullish side and the bearish side, it can feel like there's somebody else on the other side moving the market against you. And when I was working in the city as a trader, we would go to see clients when I worked for a bank. We would go and see clients around the country, and some of them would say, "Oh, you boys in the city, you're moving the market against us all the time. Why are you doing that? And how are you doing it? You're just making us lose money." And it'd be like, well, we're not doing anything. It's the market. It was just a paranoia about us moving the market and making it do something that they didn't want to do. But it was really just their assessment, or they were obviously very bullish when the market had a really good run and was probably ready for a correction. Maybe they had too much risk in the market. When you have too much risk in the market, it's very easy to get shaken out. And that's why trading on margin is a very dangerous thing to do. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, you can make a lot of money when things go the right way, but you can also get shaken out on very small moves. So it really depends how you're approaching the market. But the point is there that nobody really controls the market. The market does what it wants, and people kind of blame moves on other people, the big hedge funds or whatever. But they lose money as well when things go wrong. They blow up. They have good days and bad days, and good months and bad months. So my experience is as long as it's a liquid market with lots of players, no single entity can really influence it. The Bank of Japan tried many times to influence the dollar-yen price, in both directions, weakening the yen and strengthening the yen. And when they do that, they tend to find they can't, because the market is too big, even for them. So it's an interesting point, and I understand why you might feel like that, but unless there is somebody who has got such a big amount of capital trading it and inverted commas controlling it, and I think maybe we'd see that. I don't know if it is necessarily manipulated. I think it's just how the market is.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Maybe after this bull run, we'll be rich enough that we can manipulate the market and push it around, Paul.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think the market's too big to do that.
If we get to like 7 trillion, I think that would be enough.
Yeah, that might retire when I hit 7 trillion, maybe 6.
Blue Storm says, this better hurry, or I might become a full capitulation Cavell Anderson. He's got a YouTube channel that he just flipped bearish on some project. Well, particularly a project he was very bullish on for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And he just got washed out by a long bear market. Like, I hate this project. And it's all the owner's fault.
What's the project? Are we allowed to talk
COPI.
about it? Oh, I see. Okay. Right. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I looked at it the other day. What's going on with it? Yeah, it's made a low and it's higher than that low from last week. So, isn't that interesting? It showed a bit of signs of life, you know. So we've had a few up days. Yeah, it's come back down again, but it seems to have printed some form of low. Let's see how long that lasts for. But that's interesting that sentiment has got so negative.
Yeah. Bill Gardner. It's all over, guys. Now everyone sell me your crypto. Money May says, AJ and Paul, show me the money. Love it. Justin asking about FIAS. We can take a look at FIAS today. Let's take a look at some of these projects that have actually been running a little bit.
Sure. So the first one is Fetch. Is that correct?
FET, yeah.
Oh, FET. Okay. The whole. So is this not the right project? Because I put in FET and this came up.
It's the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance, FET. So I don't think that's Fetch isn't the right one.
It looks like a good chart, though, to be fair. Okay.
Maybe it is. Maybe Fetch AI. FET. FET should be it for sure.
Oh, I see. Here we are. Okay, that doesn't look like it's it. Let's look at.
It's trading at $1.20 right now, $1.24.
Okay, so that's the first one.
Yeah, it basically merged 3 of the top AI crypto projects into one, becoming the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance.
Okay, that's interesting. So the breakout there was this move. So I'll keep this on this side so we can see where it started to run. That was in Jan. So this is obviously a long-term chart. And it's come all the way back to the breakout point as a retest. Now that's percentage terms, obviously a big correction. So I think a level of cautiousness should be applied here because of that. But ultimately, the trend is still up. So, you know, decent amount of data. I would like to see it on a different chart. I'm not sure why. Let's see if TradingView will give us a chart. That's better. That's a much better chart. Daily. Well, I should be able to get a weekly chart as well. Yeah, I mean, this is. I like this chart. This is much better, much easier to look at. It's breaking its downward trend, which is good. It's showing some signs of life. 150 is going to be a psychological level. So what we would do here is take this high, take this low here, look at the fib levels. The first one, 23.6%, then 38.2% comes in here. The real important one is the 50%, which comes in at $2. Whether you'd wait for a move all the way up to $2 before you decided to buy is a bit far, but that's really where a change in trend is definitely confirmed. But the first step is if it breaks this downward trend line, which it looks like it's readying to do. So I think for me, from a trader's point of view, buying it over 150 would be an interesting proposition. So I'd rate that as a cautious buy. I like the fact that it's broken out so strongly. I think it's had its correction. It's come into its support. I wouldn't want to hold it below 72 cents, that low, that spike low point, because I need an exit point. I need a parachute level. That's how I look at things. So for me, it's a buy with a stop below 72 cents.
Awesome. All right, let me share my screen. Coin market cap here. Um, I think CoinMarketCap did a pretty good job of aggregating the data because it was 3 different companies kind of put into one. But we had this big AI run earlier this year, and it kicked off. And these are 3 of the leading companies that were in that, and so they benefited massively from that run. And then it just corrected back as the AI narrative calmed down, and that frequently happens in the crypto space. The narrative will run, and then the focus will turn off that narrative and go a different direction. But I do think the AI narrative is a really strong narrative. And there's a lot of quote unquote AI companies in the crypto space where they're just gimmicks. They're not legitimate AI companies. They're like, oh, we have an artificial intelligence algorithm that whatever. And like there's different levels of quality of AI. Literally, they could say they have an AI algorithm. It was programmed by, a 12th grader who's taken an AI class. And so could you consider AI? Well, technically, yes. But is it investable? Is it worth investing in? No. And there's a lot of those in the crypto space. These top 3 are more legitimate AI projects than a lot of what is out there. For example, also DEVVE has AI, an algorithm that detects anomalies that are coming up, but that's really sophisticated AI written by a top AI company out there. And so there's a lot of people that throw around the AI narrative that really their technology is crap. So what I like about this one, even though the market cap is a lot higher than what I normally invest in, and I'm not saying I'm buying this, the market cap's just too high. But if I were looking for additional exposure into the AI narrative, this would be one that would really be interesting to me because they're legitimate companies between Fetch.ai, SingularityNet, and Ocean Protocol. So it's kind of an amalgamation of those 3. And all 3 of those are legitimate companies in the AI space. So if I were trying to get more exposure in the AI space, this is a good place to do it. For me, the market cap's just higher than what I'm looking for. I'm in riskier projects, so I'm not actually going to buy it. If I were buying blue chips and wanted any AI exposure at all, like this would be a big play for me that I'd be rolling a bunch in. All right, let's take a look at Render.
Yeah, so Render, like the upward trend, we've talked about this before. It's had a good breakout, and it even got into new, I'm going to say all-time highs from the data that we've got here, but it didn't sustain them. So we made this double top. The market's corrected, came back to its first trend line, bounced, and then broke that. Then we got the very similar pattern that we've seen in quite a few projects where we've got this spike, this recovery that we talked about as a buy signal, and then the market's gone up again. And so I've redrawn this trend line today to show that this low comes in for this low here. So this is now the new trend line. This is the long-term trend line down here. So the trend is still up, even though the rate is flattened from this point. But this is the next support line that we can use. And generally, it looks like a positive trend. And there is some resistance, which is around the area where it broke down from this double top. So we look at this 1, 2, we've got a level between $6.8 and just a bit lower because there's some spikes on here. I don't know if they're kind of real trading prices, but around 6.5, I'd say, to 6.8. And we can also see that there's resistance here where it tried to get back up again. That is a really interesting area for me. So if it gets over there, then it becomes a much stronger buy. I'd say it's a buy for me already because it's made this spike and it's recovering, and this is the new upward trend. So I'm going to try and go with that. But where it becomes, so it becomes a kind of small position, but where it becomes a bigger position is when it takes out the 6.5. If we wanted to be really cautious, we could say even close over $7, and that would confirm that it's recovering more aggressively, and we'll be looking at a retest of these highs at that point. But take a step back, that looks like a bull trend. So, I think broadly speaking, it's still looking good. Volumes have tailed off a little bit, but it is August, maybe starting to go back up again, which is what we want to see. The 6.5 right here is showing us a bit of resistance, but the market is still broadly sideways when we're looking at Bitcoin as the starting point. So can it make much headway whilst that's going on? Possibly. But yeah, overall it's upward trend. It's made its spike low. We've redrawn the trend line, so we'll be looking for longer term, for it to be a good performer. So yeah, for me it's a buy.
Yeah, it's interesting the way the charts are playing out on these. I think possibly they're coming back to that trend line and gearing up to possibly run again. I would say that's what the odds are. Render is an interesting one because this is one of the avenues that blockchain and cryptographical encryption can really add some value, which is this idea of decentralized rendering. So right now, if you're really an AI company, you have to have massive processing power that you need to process massive amounts of data. Well, what if there was a way you could kind of use the Uber model? Instead of having all the computers yourself, you could lease them from other people, kind of like Uber, like you're not using your own car. Someone else who has a car is putting it to use for your benefit. So Render allows people to put their computers, when they're not using them, to work for other people's benefit. And that idea has really taken traction in the last 3 or 4 years in the crypto space, Render being the #1 company in that narrative. And so as AI tends to run, people then think about processing power. As they think about processing power, well, then Render does well. So that's why you're seeing AI and Render go up this past week quite a bit. I like Render. I did like Render a lot more when it was a lot cheaper. It was all the way back at like 57 cents back here. So it's 10x up from that. Do I think it's going to have a run? Yeah, I think this with a lot of the blue chips are going to have a run. And maybe it corrects down some more before it runs, or maybe it's ready to rumble right now. But I think Render this coming bull run is going to break these previous highs and hit some new highs, and maybe it goes up into the $20 or $30 range. But for me, I'm looking for higher multiples, so I'm not actually buying any Render. I'm in the riskier stuff that has a greater chance of going to zero, but also a greater chance of having much higher multiples. So for me, I'm not buying any Render for that reason, even though I like the project a lot and I think it has good positive upside. The opportunity cost for me having tons of funds in a blue chip versus something that could go up a lot more, well, that's what I think about all the time. Let's take a look at our next one, which is Immutable X.
Yeah, so Immutable X was one of the projects that we looked at that showed this spike and then the recovery. So we're at the first stage of that recovery and we're looking for it to build on that, really. So I can't remember whether we said we would buy it at that point or not. I'd have to go back and have a look, and I probably won't do that. But that was the thinking, that this was a capitulation low, and the market should move up from there, which it's responded well to that. But to be fair, it has had a pretty strong bear phase since the middle of March, and it could do with a recovery. Now there's a lot of resistance around $1.60, 65, all the way up to 172. That's the area that I think is most important for it to take out. But it's showing signs that it wants to at least have a run at that, which I think is good. So tentatively, I think it's a buy. These lows are still printing higher. So we've got a low here, and low here. They're curving to the upside. So the trend is up in that regard. It's breaking its downward trend as well. That would be a good secondary signal from this primary signal here. Yeah, but there is resistance coming up ahead. So that tempers it slightly because we need to see that breakthrough, because it is pretty solid resistance. But I think the bulls will take over. And broadly speaking, if it's going to trade with the bigger picture, it should take that out. So a tentative buy, that's first stage buys here, maybe adding a little bit more, and then a third stage would be through this 169, 170 area, 172, say. That would be how I'd approach this. So overall, if summarize it, it's a tentative buy at this point for me.
Nice. Yeah, I like Immutable X. I'm not buying any because it's solidly in the blue chip category. Now, way back when it was a third of this price, it was under $1 billion market cap, and I really liked it a lot. Anything under 60 cents, I said, was extremely juicy. And then it went crazy, went all the way up to $3.60. And now it's come back for people who want a second bite at the apple. I think Immutable X can do extremely well in the coming bull run. They're positioned well. They have a good team. They have good tech. They're not perfect. Like some of the projects that are on them are moving away from them to something that's even cheaper than where they're at. But they have good technology and are positioned well for this coming bull market. I think they do really well. That maybe from here they do a 20x or so, maybe even better than that. Maybe only if 10x if it doesn't go as well as it could. But they've got decent upside potential, but just decent. I tend to be in things that I hope can do a 40 to 100x if I'm right on what I think they'll do. So again, another blue chip, but a solid blue chip. And I'm just not buying it because of the blue chip, like how high the market cap is already. I'm just in the riskier stuff. Cody Huffman makes a great point. Love these load up prices on many favorite coins. Just wish I had more free cash flow at the moment. Yes. Problem when prices get really cheap and you recognize it is like, you still only have limited funds. Even when you have millions of dollars, you'll still feel like you had limited funds for all the deals that are out there. Abe says, hey, Jay and Paul, sorry I'm late, gentlemen. Any chance we can lay eyes on COPI? Nope, you were late. Can't look at cornucopias. All right, well, it is Abe, so yes, Abe, we can look at cornucopias. All right, let's take a look at AKASH.
Yeah, so another one that's made this very interesting spike pattern, very similar. Let me show you again. So if we zoom into this spike and then this W pattern, this has done exactly the same thing. Spike, W pattern, now it's moving higher. Arguably, this looks a bit more bullish, doesn't it? Because it's part of this smoother upward trend, whereas this is, it's retraced quite a lot more if we're comparing the two. So if I'm bullish on Immutable X, I've got to be bullish on this because the chart patterns are so similar, except this one is better. It's in a better position from a longer term trend point of view. So the headline would be, yes, I think it's, for me, it's a buy. A tentative buy in the same way that Immutable X is, but a buy nonetheless because the trend is up. And I think this is ultimately the spike low point, which would be exactly where I put my, below that would be where I put my stop if buying at this level. Looking at how it tried to make a new all-time high around 7, this area up here is going to be so interesting if this is the run that takes it back to it, because if we complete the price action and say it's up around here, then a breakout through here will be such a massive move because there's so much resistance. Obviously, that's a downside to buying it because it puts a limit at that point. This is like a ceiling with which it needs to break through. But if it does, it opens up some very big moves potentially for it. And because I'm broadly bullish, I think there's a good percentage probability that it will manage to take that out from a longer term perspective. It may take some patience, but if this is the spike low point, then I think we've seen the worst that it can throw at us. Now, I could be wrong and I'd have to bail out, That's the thing about markets. You're playing probability. Sometimes they can be far in your favor and it still doesn't work. It can go against you, but that's how the markets are. But if this does run, then there could be quite a lot of upside. So for me, it's a buy, and I think I've become more aggressive the higher it goes, especially through $3, because that was the double top breakdown point. And then it seems to like to play around the big figures. So $3 is resistance, $4 is resistance too. So I'd use those for me as additional kind of buy points to add to the position.
Awesome. So we've had some Rainmaker family members in the chat talking about AKASH as it came back down from $6 back down into these juicy levels. And I can see why they're looking closely at it. It probably is turning back around to go to the upside. It's on a lot of the major exchanges, Coinbase. Market cap still isn't too high. It's 667 million. Okay, cool. So it's under $1 billion, which means it might have some decent upside potential. Let's look at what kind of comments we're getting on the right. It's loaded up with a bunch of ads. Looking for comments from people. What I really like to see is a bunch of negative comments from people. I'm bullish on AKT. AKT top 10 D-pin prod tokens, which hold high potential for the bull run. Okay. Got a lot less data than I was hoping here. AI-focused tokens are in the spotlight as NVIDIA gets ready to release its quarterly results. AKT, I'm bullish. AKT, fine. AKT times NVIDIA. Best coin in the effing world. Soon dump. AKT to $50 now. So tons of bullishness from the sentiment. There is this thing called recency bias that I think about in crypto, in any market all the time, that what has been doing well will continue to do well. And you see that like in the comments, there's like so much bullishness and only one bearish comment in there. And some of that is just this recency bias. But I do like the chart setup. Often you'll get like a W with, you get a higher low. So it often will not quite return to the lows of this bear market. And so maybe it turns around here. Maybe it keeps going down further before turning around. Interesting. For me, it's a very light buy. I like to buy cheap, and it's not really cheap. It's just a little bit cheap. So it's just a small buy for me. I like the chart pattern, and I'll be fully aware that it might come down some more before it turns around. And that's why just a light buy. Cool. Let's take a look at FIAS token.
Okay.
That would be FIAS. CoinGecko might be better for finding it. Yeah, it is.
So is it the first one or which one?
CoinGecko is where I found it. Yeah, this is it on Gecko Terminal.
Okay. So get a decent chart. So thoughts behind this one? It's not got a lot of history. It's kind of gone down from day one. Seems to be potentially stabilizing. I like to look at charts like this because, like right now, it's a wait. There's nothing I would do with this because it's going sideways. Sideways to lower seems to be the direction. But these are really interesting because when they break out either to that, well, we're not going to short it because there's not much to make from the downside, but when they break out to the upside, and we've got a very clear level here around 3.2 cents, they can accelerate. You can see some really big moves. Now, of course, between here and there, there's percentage terms. That's a really big move. But at this point, it's a bit like putting money on for me, a long odds horse race, 100 to 1. Yes, of course, you're going to make lots of money if it goes up or if it wins, but the chances of it winning is still low percentage. And it's the same here. I'd need to confirm it to be a bit more of a front runner to show some strength before personally I would buy it, or I'd have justification from a technical point of view. So it is definitely a wait, but I think it is one that, as we've seen with some of the other tokens, when they range trade and then break out, you see these massive moves. Perhaps this is one that may potentially do that. So I'd like to keep coming back to it. There's obviously a good fundamental reason as to why we're kind of analyzing it today. But as far as the chart goes, right here, right now, I'm definitely a wait. I don't see any reason to buy at this point for me, but that can change. And that's ultimately what you're doing with charts and technicals. You're looking for a change in market sentiment to be reflected in the price. And those changes come in slowly sometimes and then suddenly very quickly. So we don't want to miss a breakout. But I'd like to know a bit more about it, what it does. I've not heard of it before, or if I have, I can't remember if we have actually looked at it before.
Yeah, FIAS is the gaming token for Litcraft. And Litcraft is built by the people who built the DEVVE or DEVVE blockchain. And so we've covered this a number of times. They're the ones that they have actually the #2 blockchain game out there, as rated by Cointelegraph, I believe. And just right behind Illuvium, the token for their project is pretty much unknown. In the game, even though it was rated so highly, most people aren't aware of the game yet. And so the token launched a few months ago, and the token price has just been absolutely punished and devastated as awareness is super low. They haven't put money into marketing. They put a lot of their funds into game development. Also, they're raising additional funds because they have a deal on the table to license 5 of the top mobile games. And with their technology, they can bring those mobile games into blockchain gaming in a matter of months. And so if that happens, they could take AAA level games and bring them onto the blockchain extremely fast. And then their project would get extremely well known. So this is one of the things I like about fundamental analysis, understanding what's going on behind it. So one of the things that made Warren Buffett so rich was this idea of value investing, or in other words, fundamental investing. Researching the heck out of the project to understand what is the value behind it, even if others don't recognize it yet. And then taking bets. And that's essentially what I do in the crypto space. And I like FIAS as a bet. Now, early stage projects like this are risky. When they pay out, the payouts can be huge. Like Paul said it perfectly well. It's like 100 to 1 odds. And so if something like this goes your way, the payouts are gigantic. Huge multiples. So anything you invest in a project like this, you risk, in fact, anything you invest in most crypto projects, you risk losing your entire bet on it. But if it goes well on something like this, your multiplier could be gigantic. So FIAS has been a lot on my mind. I have a really big position in DEVVE. I haven't yet diversified into FIAS. This is the price I've been waiting to come back to because it went down this cheap back here and it's back down to that price again. So I'm going to be rating it absolutely a buy at this price. All right, let's take a look next at cornucopias.
Okay, so here's the chart. So we have looked at this obviously before. This is the trend line that we're waiting for it to break to confirm the base is in. We have seen that spike. which was here on the 5th of August, where everything got sold off. It's not broken that low, which is a positive. It's made that W pattern, but it's not broken above it. So it's a muted reaction. So we've seen the capitulation and we've seen a recovery, but we've not seen enough for it to be, for me to be confident enough. This is definitely the low. If there was, I'm just trying to think if there was anything else that could influence the view. I mean, minimum, it's got to break this trend line, and we're literally just sitting on it right now. So you can see it's touched it, it's come right off, which makes that even more significant. So this level at 3.3 cents, if it breaks that, that's similar to what some of the other markets have done when they've kind of completed or confirmed their base. If it could break that, it would also break the downward trend line. So I'm going to say that would be my buy point, a move through 3.3. But for the moment, it's still a wait because it hasn't confirmed it completely. It's still testing that downward trend line and respecting it. And I don't want it to respect it. I want it to break it for it to be a buy. I still like it long term because it's in an upward trend. We've got plenty of data to analyze here. So we've still got higher lows, which is good. We're just waiting for confirmation that this is the next higher low point from which it's going to trend higher and create, create the platform for the next bull run for it. Lots of resistance around 4.5 cents. Again, that would be the secondary buy point for me. And then over at 5.9. But for the moment, until it actually starts moving in that direction, I need to be a bit more patient for this particular breakout. So for me, it's a wait. But I'd be interested to hear whether you feel it's a cheap buy from your perspective, and it overrides what I'm saying.
I totally think you already knew what I was going to say. Yes. It is, the only concern is like the curve hasn't yet flattened, right? So it is heading pretty steeply, but it's getting into really cheap territory, which I like. So not that things can't turn around suddenly, but it looks like it's going to come even a little bit cheaper unless all of a sudden the blockchain gaming narrative comes right back. And I don't think it's going to come right back. So it's cheap and getting even cheaper. So I'd rate it a buy at this level. But it would just be a small buy because I think it's going to get even cheaper than its current $25 million market cap. So this is a realm I like to be in. If Cornucopias becomes one of the top blockchain games as blockchain gaming takes off, and they're positioned well that could be the case, then something like this could go to a market cap of $5 billion. Well, where is that from here? That's a 200x from here. Now, it could also go to zero. So like if the project runs out of money and is not able to raise more money and fails, well, the token could become worthless. But if it does well, and it just does modestly well, it might do a 20x from here. And if it does extremely well, it might do a 200x from here. I like those kind of numbers. And this is one of the reasons why I'm passing up on the blue chips is I'm in riskier projects like Cornucopias, and FIAS is one I will be adding some in. So that's what I'm looking for, is these riskier bets that, sure, they could go to zero on me. So could a high market cap project. The higher market cap projects are less risky of going to zero, but they don't have the huge potential upside gains. And where we are in the market, I like those things with the huge potential upside gains because I think the market is going to perform pretty well in this coming year. And I want to be in the ones that have the higher gains. Great suggestions by the audience. Jorge Silva says, I'm late to stream, but I have one question. Do you guys think the lawsuit on Shrapnel has finished the project, or can it make a comeback? Why don't you tell us more about the lawsuit on Shrapnel? Because I'm... here we go. Finding that now. Update. Shrapnel directors sue shareholders in battle over corporate control, but game on track. Goodness, I didn't even realize there was a lawsuit going on here. Now, I don't own any shrapnel yet. I was waiting for a cheap price to buy some. We can take a look at the price, but these kind of internal disputes are never good for token price or usually for share price. It was about to enter early access in December with a full release plan for mid-2024. So the lawsuit has been going on for a while. I didn't know full release plan for mid-2024. Well, we're in mid-2024 and there's definitely no full release yet. This article was posted when? Okay, November 2023. Interesting. This is also November 2023. See if there's any updated. This is May 2024. The founders of Shrapnel Game Studio say a major investor tried to take it over. Interesting. That never helps. I don't know. Let's look at the price of shrapnel and see what's going on there. Wow. Okay, well, I do like cheap prices. Market cap's all the way at 16 million. And if you have the chart, I'll flip over to your screen so you can take a look at it. There we go.
Yeah, it's yeah, I can't personally, I wouldn't be buying something like this because it's a downward trend. It hasn't shown that it's over yet. We have had a bounce, but there's more work to do really before we can confirm it's over. And I get that there's good opportunities sometimes when people can see past whatever the lawsuit or the disagreements are about, and if there's a good company underneath that, then it could be a great risk, but it's a great opportunity, I should say. But there's also great risk with that too. So personally, I would prefer to wait until there's a bit more of an established upward trend, and I don't mind not buying the low for that reason. Let somebody else to buy that low. I prefer to pay a bit more and have the trend moving in the right direction. So as far as I can see here, it's still a downward trend, and I wouldn't personally be looking to catch this where it is now, but we could definitely come back to it and have a look in a few weeks' time, see if things have improved. But this downward trend needs to break before I could, even think about it. And we need to see some form of reversal pattern, which indicates that this trend is over. This downward move is over.
Yeah. This is a great one to still be on the sidelines in. This downward trend is still heading pretty sharp. And so notice the discrepancy. This is CoinMarketCap, says they have a $6 million market cap. And they're saying that essentially 8% of the tokens are in circulation. So that gives us a fully diluted market cap of 75 million. Let's see what CoinGecko says. So this says same fully diluted valuation, but it's saying more tokens are in circulation. And probably that's the case, that more tokens are in circulation. I do think this is going to get cheaper. So for me, it's a wait. All right. Cool. That's what we have for suggestions this week.
Yeah, I think many people are on holiday still, and I'm sure it's all going to liven up in the next few weeks. So
awesome. We'd love to have you in 2 weeks. Next week I'll be traveling, but I still should be able to make the Wednesday time if that still works for you. The following week, I'd love it if you could join our private members again on a special private chat.
Sure.
After the normal.
So that's 2 weeks' time, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. That's great. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Oh, we got time to do one more. Why don't we sneak in one more?
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at
DEVVE.
DEVVE.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's come back here. Now, I seem to remember that this is one that has been under a lot of pressure, to say the least. Yeah, unfortunately, it's the same thing, really. Still this downward trend. If you're going to just confirm the price is what you think it is too. Downward trend still in effect. We haven't seen that final capitulation. From a technical point of view, we are looking for, or I'm looking for, some form of stabilization. We call that a reversal pattern, but all it is the market stabilizing and going sideways. And sometimes there's a lot of volatility when that happens. When the market's quite smooth like this, it's usually a sign that the trend is going to keep going. So it's still smoothly to the downside, which means for me it's definitely a wait, and I can't buy something like this. Again, something we can come back to, but it's been fairly consistently a downward trend, and we need to see some form of change in the market dynamics. So something like a sharp move up that would take out a few of these bearish bars in one go, that would be a sign. Another sign could be it dropping really hard and then coming back again. Just dropping really hard for me is not enough. It's got to recover. So it's got to look like people panic, and then they see that as a really cheap price and everyone jumps on it and it comes back up again. That recovery indicates that there's some really good buying, and the base of the market is getting closer. We haven't got any of those as yet. And it kind of looks like it might even be accelerating a little bit. This 0.18 level was an extremely important support point. It's just let that go. So at the very least, it's got to get back over there to show some form of strength. But even that for me at this point wouldn't be enough to turn it into a buy. It just go a little bit less bearish, and I'd need it to look bullish before I'd want to buy it. So for me, it's definitely a wait at this point.
Yeah. The chart doesn't look like it's ready to turn around on this. Not yet. Like Paul said, it is still going down. Now, I like this chart because it shows the full history. When the token came out, pumped tremendously all the way to $2.23. It's now come back down and is below what most people got their pre-sale price at. So they're still vesting all the way through, I think, October of those pre-sale tokens, and then those run out, and that and maybe something else continues to put downward price pressure on the token, and it doesn't look like it's ready to turn around yet. As a level, I'd say that this is a small buy, but just a small buy because I think it's going to get cheaper from here. And I love where the price is at on the market cap. Let's see. $8.2 million market cap. Now, this is a layer 1 blockchain that can do 8 million transactions per second. So it's faster than Solana by like 100x faster than Solana. So it just doesn't have much awareness yet. It doesn't have a lot built on it yet. The Litecraft ecosystem is built on it, but not a lot built on it. And there's other ones coming, but it's still early days, and awareness on this project is very, very low. And the price is therefore very, very low and probably about to get even cheaper, which in my opinion is a blessing rather than a curse. I have really large holdings on this. Cool. I'm not going to sell at this price. The question I ask myself, do I have more liquidity to buy more? In this case, I'm not, because I do have so much of DEVVE. So I'm still up on my position because I got it 3 years ago at an early investment round. But I'm not selling at these prices. This is a buy more price, not a sell price for me. All right. Great suggestions by everyone. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. See you in 2 weeks.
All right. We'll see you then.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Cool. Yes. This is what early bull markets feel like, right? And early bull markets just characterized by Bitcoin generally trending up, which is exactly what's been happening. Of course, it went from 14,000 to 75,000 and has pulled back, and now it's been trading sideways for a while. My guess is it breaks to the upside when it's ready to break up or down. I think it'll break to the upside and continue that run. You are seeing massive amounts of Bitcoin being bought by some institutions and other big holders, and they're just holding them. So I think we're ready to roll. And as Bitcoin breaks 100,000, that increases awareness that people start paying attention to the crypto space. Then they start throwing money into the crypto space, and that pumps Bitcoin more, but then it starts pumping the whole market. And that's why I'm in these riskier projects. Now, if you haven't already, I can tell you a way to get a hold of my free course. I released a new course called What Blockchain Investors Do Right. And let me share with you how to get that for free. Now, the full price is $200. I still have some redemption codes if you're interested in it. This is how you get it. First of all, you go to The Real Crypto Rain on Instagram. You follow me there, and then you shoot me a DM and you say Rainmaker. And I will send you a code as long as I have codes remaining. And there's only a total of 500 codes for people to get the course for free. After that, it's a regular price. But for now, you can get it completely free. So why wouldn't you? These are like a smaller course on a lot of what I learned from the past 7 years in crypto that helped me go from tens of thousands of dollars invested into millions of dollars. And I'm pretty sure if you do the right types of things, that is exactly what can happen to you too, if you're doing things right. Just know that 90% of people in crypto are doing it very, very wrong, and they have mediocre to poor results. 5% do okay, and 5%, the remaining 5%, do exceptionally well. So when I came into crypto, it was always about me trying to learn what the top 5% were doing. And that's a lot of what I'm passing on to you. You could see by the results I had in 2021 that put me clearly in the top 5%. And it's me sharing those lessons with you so that this coming bull run can go incredibly well for you. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Enjoy the wrap. We will see you soon.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. The next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the bull will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Amazing time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.